What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now taking us in to Jacksonville, Alabama. It's time to talk about the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, who are going to see an entire rebuild this season. However, with a strong foundation, can a new head coach still lead this team to a lot of success in 2025? My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, then please do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications ensures that you don't miss a thing during prediction season, especially not a video talking about your favorite team. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, and if you would like to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, then please give me a follow on social media. It's at TailgateNate29 on Twitter, Instagram, and you can even feel free to reach out via email if you so please, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me and the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. And now, with all of that said and done and out of the way, let's dive on in by talking about this Gamecock program. Rich Rodriguez has gone over back to his old stomping grounds in West Virginia, and there is a new head man in town. His name is Charles Kelly. He's a guy who's been in coaching for a very, very, very long time, has had a coaching career since 1990, and has really bounced around quite everywhere. As far as recently, as far as all the way back at 2019, he was an Alabama assistant defensive coordinator, moved over to be Colorado's DC under Dion in 2023. Last year was Auburn's co-defensive coordinator, and now is going to be thrown into a head coaching role here with the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. So a bit of an interesting pipeline for him, but he's taken over this program that sees a ton of talent leave. But the strong foundation was set by Rich Rod and definitely can help this program moving forward. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we do go through a roster overview, offense here to the left, defense here to the right. End of the video, we go through the Jacksonville State football schedule. I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Gamecocks here in 2025. Before we do get started, write down there returning production numbers, and you see what I mean. 28%, 24%, and 32%. Yikes, those are not great returning production numbers. It just shows you that you lose a lot of talent. Hey, those numbers are courtesy ESPN. They do factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. Not much here, though, with Jacksonville State. As far as recruiting transfer portal ranks, those are for the class of 2025, and they are according to 24/7 Sports. All that said and done and out of the way, Clint Trickett, your offensive coordinator this upcoming season. And again, I just said it. I've said it many times before. This entire program is filling holes. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, D-line, linebacker, defensive back, special teams, all of it. This entire program is seeing a bunch of news this year. However, again, the foundation that Rich Rodriguez set in this program, even back at the FCS level where they were really good, transitioning that over to the FBS level and even pulling off again. Remember that big upset against Florida State a couple years back, might even be more than I'm remembering now at this point. Believe that was still when they were an FCS team. Look, they've carried over all sorts of momentum. They've been one of the better teams in Conference USA, and they just won a conference title last year as well. So the foundation here is strong, and there still are some good building blocks, even though you do lose a lot of talent. It starts with the quarterback position. Tyler Huff, 2,543 yards, 14 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. But if you know anything about Jacksonville State, you know this offense is built on running the football. 1,344 yards and 15 rushing touchdowns for the quarterback. Huff last season had 5.9 yards per carry. You also do lose Logan Smothers, who was the backup and has seen starting minutes at points throughout his Jacksonville State career, even when he was at Nebraska, but you no longer have him on the team either. And so, portal pieces, they're going to be battling it out for the back position here. You got Cade Cunningham, who is a transfer coming over from Memphis, saw a lot of experience being on the program, but obviously not much playing time because you had Seth Hennigan playing in front of you. You do get a guy coming in, though, that probably is not as talented as Cade Cunningham, in my opinion, but Gavin Wimsatt does transfer in from Kentucky, formerly of Rutgers, last year with the Wildcats, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. You go all the way back to 2023, where he was the primary guy for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, 1,735 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. There is a lot to work with Gavin Wimsatt. However, what helps Gavin Wimsatt, if you're going to stay in a similar system than what you've seen under Rich Rodriguez, 497 yards and 11 touchdowns rushing with the Scarlet Knights in 2023. So that does help his case. Throw it up in the air. I think either of these two guys can start, and either of these two guys will provide some different things and different looks to this offense. As far as the running back room, well, again, we all know how important it is for this team. You are going to be losing your lead back as well. Trey Stewart is now with the Minnesota Vikings. 1,638 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 25 rushing touchdowns. Again, that's how this team did their damage. They did it on the ground. Cam Cook is going to come in, and again, I doubt that he gets to that level of production, mainly because that's just simply a really hard thing to do. But Cam Cook was not a bad back during his time with TCU last season. 460 yards and 9 touchdowns, 119 carries. That's right around 3.9 yards per carry. And yeah, that's not great. His long run of the year was only 19 yards last season, but I think he can still be a solid piece here. He probably will be that lead back. And the depth pieces like Andrew Paul are going to end up elevating in this program. Andrew Paul probably going to be that second string, and then lots of younger pieces that sit behind those two. Paul. Now, I know I've talked a lot about this program needing to fill a bunch of holes, and you do still lose your leading wide receiver from last year in Cam Vaughn. 803 yards and 5 touchdowns, had almost double what anyone else on this team had as far as receptions and yards goes. 48 catches, no one else had more than 25. However, the wide receiver room is interesting because that's where I think a lot of this 24% returning production does come back. Michael Petway and others, such as a guy whose last name I know I'm going to butcher, but Brock Recksteiner. They both come back here to this team. That was your second and third leading receivers from a year ago, among many other names that you could say come back to this wide receiver room. Most of those guys will be elevated into new roles. Even you could say the same thing about Petway and Recksteiner, respectfully. You do add some transfers in. DeAndre Jordan is coming over from Rutgers, and you do get Dylan Gentry, who is an Auburn transfer. So a couple D4 guys will come into this program. And the tight end room does see its losses. Its lead tight end from last year is gone. That was a guy by the name of Sean Brown. Was really good for throughout the game. Was really good throughout his Gamecock career. That's what I'm trying to say. Pearson Baldwin is going to be coming back to this program with the expectation to take over the lead tight end role after only 2 catches for 31 yards last year. But you also do get Harrison Hamsley, who comes over from Valdosta State at, I believe, the Division II ranks, Independence Community College, formerly a Georgia Southern Eagle there as well. So you do get some nice pieces. And as far as the offensive line goes, well, a lot of spaces are going to need to be filled, and not many transfers enter into this offensive line room. This is going to be a really, really young starting offensive line with guys that have been in the program before. So that does help, but I mean, taking a look throughout this starting offensive line, no seniors could be a cause for concern. You do have a redshirt transfer, well, former transfer in KD Small. You have a true junior in Cameron Griffin. The rest of those guys are either redshirt or true sophomores. So, and depth in the offensive line room can be a little bit of a question there as well. So, a lot of questions to answer here for the Jacksonville State offense. This really, really is an offensive unit when I look at it that just might need to see some pieces fit. Again, who knows what the offensive system is going to look like, and which one of these two guys in Cunningham or Wimsatt is better suited for the job. Depends on what you're looking for out of a quarterback. In fact, I would be shocked if both of those guys don't get at least some playing time this season, especially because Zion Turner, another quarterback that did transfer away and transfer out. Now, I'll rephrase what I said about the O-line. You do have some pieces coming in from the lower levels of football. Jeremiah Orr, Adrian Gunn were not FBS, or I believe they weren't even FCS players, so they're going to transition up quite a bit. Maybe give some to the offensive line, we'll see, but there's a lot of questions to answer offensively. Same thing defensively. Brian Williams is your defensive coordinator. You're defensive coordinator. He's got a great track record in recruiting and especially helping on-field performance. Most recently, being a defensive coordinator over with Maryland Terrapins, and really helped turn that defense around and turned it into some of the better defenses that Maryland has seen throughout its program history. And the defense already last year overall was not too bad. It overall was pretty solid. And so there you go. There is a lot of reason to be optimistic about this defense this year, especially in turnover production. 24 turnovers forced for the team last year. You could see a similar number this year, but we got to talk about the talent now. Defensive line mainstays. Well, you're going to be losing some of them. Reginald Hughes is the big one. 83 tackles with 4.5 sacks that led the team a season ago. You're also going to be losing Curly Young, also a guy coming off the edge, 50 tackles, 2.5 sacks, also a top 10 tackler. And there are not many transfers coming into this defensive line room either. You want to talk about some that do? You do have Curtis Perry, Isaac Walker, Jacob Cruz, most of those guys as edge rushers. Perry coming into it. But as far as guys that I think you know are going to give you some solid production here on this team, it's again going to be a much younger room. On top of those two guys off the edge rusher tandem, you're going to be losing some more talent on the interior as well. A lot of gaps I think are going to be filled internally. I think those transfers are still going to play a solid part, especially Curtis Perry, who again is in that interior of this 3-3-5 defense. But this is very much so a defensive line that I got some questions about and needs to see some improvement from last year as well. Now, again, I know they won conference championship, everything like that. 25 sacks last year, that's a number that can and certainly is capable of getting higher. With most linebacker pieces gone, you do return Morven Joseph, but again, a lot of these linebacker pieces are going to be fit in through the transfer portal. Jacob Cruz is a guy that's probably going to end up playing linebacker for you. There's Miles Butler. That's going to be transferring into this program as well. He is transferring over. He's transferring over from Campbell. Sorry, I on school down on my notes. I knew it was wrong, so I had to check it. As well as some other pieces that do enter through this portal room. But again, a lot of questions with a lot of really good pieces that you saw last year gone out of the linebacker unit. As far as defensive back starters, yep, losing a ton of those as well. Pretty much every major contributor, including your top two tacklers, Fred Perry, and the likes of Antonio Carter. Both of those guys had 109 tackles last year and were really, really valuable to what this defense was able to do, especially from a pass defending standpoint last season. And you lose even more guys that I could name as well. Zechariah Poyser is gone. Fred Davis is gone. Derek Carter is gone. And again, the list can just go on and on from there. You do return Patrick Taylor. He will be a senior starter in the safety room, but most of your starting production, at least according to ourlads.com, will come through the transfer portal. Larry Preston, Ron Elston, Tyron Taylor, Traquan Fagans, even Jacarvis Alexander. All of those names probably going to see some starting time. At the very least, will provide some depth. And overall, when you take a look at this defense, just a lot that has to fit in, right? You're replacing defensive line pieces. You're replacing linebacker pieces. You're replacing defensive back pieces. And look, I know Brian Williams has a great track record. He's going to be working with an entirely new unit and a lot of guys built out of the portal with a lot of questions about how deep a lot of these units really can go. As far as the kicking room, well, this is a shocker because, again, not that many returning pieces. The kicking room does all return for this campaign. Cade Back is coming in to punt, and Garrison Ripa is back to kick. So, again, that's your special teams report. Overall, you take a look at this team, and like I said about the offense, you could say for the defense, which means you can say it about the whole team. It's just a lot of pieces that have to fit in. If you don't get guys in the portal, it's a lot of guys that are going to be playing much bigger roles than they did last season at the very least. If not, hey, you did get transfer pieces at the quarterback position. I like Cam Cook as a running back for you, but what are the wide receiver pieces going to fit in around the likes of Petway and Recksteiner? What about the defense? And again, how deep can these units really go? I got a lot of questions about just the overall way that Jacksonville State is going to work this year. However, like I said before, the foundation is built and it is strong, but can it navigate this schedule you see right over here. Well, we'll talk about what I think in a minute. But first, right down below me, you know the drill as per usual. Odds courtesy of FanDuel. We take a look at their odds to win the conference. For group of 5 teams, that's odds to get into the college football playoff because we know it's going to take a lot for them to win the national championship. But the over under win total, because of the strong foundation that Jacksonville State has built, even with all the changes to the roster, to the coaching staff, I still think you've got a lot of solid talent here, and Vegas respects that. Over under win total at 6.5. Vegas does expect this team to make a bowl game. Even if you take the under, 6 wins still hit. That is a bowl game team. But Jacksonville State, man, trying to defend that Conference USA title is going to be rough this year. Liberty, Western Kentucky, even Sam Houston State, Middle Tennessee, some of the newcomers into this conference can give you a good run for your money, and you do have the 5th longest odds to win the conference at plus 1,100. And that's pretty lengthy odds considering what Liberty and Western Kentucky have currently in the odds market, and plus 5,500 odds to get into the college football playoff. Again, that shows you there's a lot that's going to happen. I do think Jacksonville State gets some big wins this year. I don't think on the road against Central Florida is one of them. Now, it is 2 teams that are going over a ton of change. I just think Central Florida overall has a little bit more talent, and when you go on the road and play in the bounce house, it is going to be a really, really hard thing to do. Scott Frost is there at UCF now. He's going to build the type of program that he hopefully built before during his last stint when he was here with this program. And again, they had the undefeated season. And again, Scott Frost had some great years with this program. It's going to take a lot of building, and Scott Frost is going to get some off the field issues figured out. However, this is a Central Florida team. And again, I do like talent wise a little bit better than what I see at a Jacksonville State right now. Again, though, I told you some big wins are on the horizon. I actually think they get one early. Call it an upset, call it whatever you will. I got some questions about the Liberty Flames this year, and overall, I think by far and away, they are the front runners to win Conference USA. Didn't even mean to rhyme there, but I did. Maybe you can throw Western Kentucky into that mix as well. But you're going to be replacing Caden Salter at quarterback, Quentin Cooley at running back. Honestly, some good wide receiver pieces, even though they were depth pieces last year, are still going to leave. You still got some mainstays like Elijah Cannon, Reese Smith. I like Julian Gray at running back. Ethan Vasco transfers in over from Coastal Carolina. Defensively, I think you get a lot of really nice pieces back, including CJ Bazile, apologies, as one of the edge rushing players there. Secondary can be solid. Call it an upset if you will. This is the nature and chaos of college football, and I got a pretty sneaky feeling. I think Jacksonville State's going to be pretty good at home this season as well. This is a big supporting fan base, and again, despite replacing a lot, they still do have a lot of nice talent here on this team. Call it an upset. I think that's what it is. I think the Gamecocks get Liberty here at home. Just the feeling in your gut that tells you you got a little funny feeling about that game. On the road against Georgia Southern, though, I do think is a loss. The Eagles are going to be one of the better sides in the Sun Belt Conference this season, and also do have a lot of nice returning talent, such as J.C. French at the quarterback position, O.J. Arnold at the running back position, Josh Dallas, Dalen Kopp are 2 really nice wide receiver pieces in a very deep wide receiver room. And defensively, there still are some solid pieces that come back, while some good defensive pieces are going to be transferring in. Georgia Southern, again, on the road, I think that's where Jacksonville State really struggles this year, and that is a loss for Georgia Southern. However, I do think you're going to rip off a couple wins here. I think Murray State is going to be a win as an FCS level program. I don't think Murray State will contend with what Jacksonville State has been able to build up now with the FBS level, and on the road against Southern Miss. Even though I think Southern Miss is going to see some improvement this year because, again, Braylon Braxton is going to be that quarterback for him this year, and I just can't see Southern Miss having another 1-11 season. I think they're going to be much better than that this year based on the talent that they did add. They're still going to struggle, and I still don't think they're up to the program standard overall that Jacksonville State is at this year. I do recognize this is the Gamecock logo that can really struggle this season, trying to envelop new talent in a new system. It can be a long process. I don't think they're going to lose to a team that has, I think, much more to figure out and does not have as strong of a foundation as Jacksonville State does within their program. So that's a win on the road against this. Then you get a bye week before you play a weekday game. In fact, you get 3 midweek games in a row. You get to come. The first one here is against Sam Houston State. Now, Sam Houston State is losing some really good pieces from last year, most notably on the defensive end. But outside of the talent, of course, their most notable loss is their head coach, Casey Keeler. He has now taken the head coaching job over at Temple, but there are some really good constants, such as Hunter Watson. He's coming back in the quarterback position. You're running still through the portal, but I like Elijah Green, a guy that's coming over from North Carolina. Same thing with Xander Cheek. I like him a lot coming in through the portal. Still some really experienced and good wide receiver pieces. And even though you do bring in a lot of transfers on the defensive side, it's a lot of experienced guys who have played a lot of football and in some cases have played in many different systems. And I really like what you did through the transfer portal. So on the road against Sam Houston State, yes, technically they do have the state in there. Phil Longo is that head coach there now too, and that's where the icing is on the cake for me. A guy who has been that head coach before, has been around the block, has had tons of coaching experience, and albeit Charles Kelly has as well. Phil Longo's got more head coaching experience, and overall, I think Sam Houston State's got a little bit of a better roster. So I'll go with them at home against Jacksonville State. So a little bit of rough sledding, but you do get that big win against Liberty. And even if you lose to Liberty, I think you're going to be able to get one of those big wins on the road, such as Georgia Southern or Sam Houston State. Maybe you can pull off that week one upset against Central Florida, but if that's the case, you probably win at least one more game that I have you projecting on losing here this year. At home against Delaware, really did think about this one because I think Delaware's got some nice talent that's going to translate pretty well to the FBS level. And I think they're going to be one of those teams like Jacksonville State was that, look, while it's obviously going to take time to adjust, the more and more I look into this Delaware team, the more and more I like them. And the more and more I feel like, hey, this is a team that can be pretty darn competitive in the FBS right away, especially in this conference and against a team that, again, is trying to replace a lot of pieces. I still think Jacksonville State wins the game because they have built that foundation in the FBS level. I think they're going to show Delaware, hey, you're playing FBS football now. This is what we are about. And while I think the Blue Hens can adjust pretty quickly, I think they see their struggles and moments, and Jacksonville State will beat them. On the road against Middle Tennessee, I got you losing this one as well. I've been saying it over the past couple of seasons, and it just hasn't come to fruition. So I'll say it again. And if they beat me, then if they beat me again this year, then I'll change my philosophy. But Middle Tennessee is absolutely a team to watch out for this season, especially with Nick Vadiato at the quarterback position. If those longtime viewers of the channel who watch a lot of my videos know how much I like him and know how much I like a lot of the pieces in this wide receiver room, Kamarion Carter, Miles Butler, you have some solid running back pieces, but this is an offense built through the pass and a defense that in the back seven has a lot of nice experienced pieces returning as well as some good transfers. Some questions on the defensive front, but interior wise, I think they'll be strong. They got some good edge rushers. That can be a sleeper team in Conference USA this season. On the road against UTEP, it's your second leg of a back-to-back road stint here. I think Jacksonville State's going to win one, maybe two road games this season. This one I just see being one of them right here. I do think you get this one on the road against UTEP in a team that, again, was not too great last season, but Scotty Walden is still trying to build that foundation, right? And I think UTEP sees some improvement this year with Skylar Locklear coming back at the quarterback position. He's got a lot of nice wide receiver pieces. And again, Scotty Walden did great things at the Austin P with some really good defensive pieces coming back as well. UTEP does improve. Again, I think Jacksonville State gets one here, and I think there's a quarterback they're going to play on the road later that's a lot more dangerous than what you're going to see out of Skylar Locklear, but we'll get there in a couple games. I think they beat Kennesaw State. Now, the Owls are one of the top teams in the country as far as returning production goes, and they honestly did surprise compared to relative expectations. They did win 2 games last year when a lot of people felt like they were going to go over, and now they're bringing in some transfer portal talent. Dexter Williams is here. Coleman Bennett is here. You do get Chase Belcher in here. Marcus Patterson's coming into the defensive line room. He's a Western Kentucky transfer. That was good for the Hilltoppers last year. They're starting to rake in some of this really high-level talent, and I think they see a jump this season. Not enough to beat Jacksonville State. And bam, you probably could have guessed it, but here's the quarterback on the road that I think Jacksonville State is not going to handle very well. It's a guy by the name of K'Wan Jenkins. And even though this FIU team might not be that great once it is all said and done, I do think that this is a K'Wan Jenkins player that's going to be really dangerous and really hard for opposing defenses to corral. And I think Jacksonville State has trouble with that, but they round the season out with a win against Western Kentucky, much like the Liberty game, kind of an upset feel-ish, did beat them soundly in the Conference USA Championship game after losing to them. closely on the road in the regular season. Now they got him at home, and Western Kentucky's replacing some pieces there as well. So 7-5 is what I got for Jacksonville State. Considering everything, in my opinion, not that bad of a season. Now, I do know this is a Gamecock fan base that's going to be hopeful for a little bit more this season. However, I do think this is a program that sees its struggles. While the foundation is still nice and all, you're still going to get through your growing pains this year. A lot of new talent in a new system, but with that strong foundation and the winning culture that has been built under Rich Rod over the past couple of seasons, I still think you see some success. I think it would take a little bit for you to break into the conference championship game because, look, even if you go on the road, you beat Sam Houston, you beat FIU, you still got to play the top two teams in the conference in Liberty and Western Kentucky. And while I have you winning both of them, it is not far-fetched to say they lose one or both, and overall can really struggle this year, but with the foundation that is built, I think they see some good success anyway. At very least, get back to a bowl game. Let me know what you guys think about the Gamecocks in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See y'all in the next video. Goodbye.